Hello, and welcome to the Ovarian Club, a glimpse into conversations between two besties across countries, South Africa and France, tackling the trendiest women's wellness topics through a scientific lens. Join me, Dr. Tarryn, and health expert Emma as we explore delicate subjects related to the women's health space. We started this podcast to share our conversations to help navigate the complex women's wellness world. We hope you enjoy the podcast and take away as much from it as we've enjoyed making it. The Ovarian Club, powering life, nurturing health, shaping sustainable wellness. So, my follicle friends, let's begin.
Hey, Ta.
How's it, Em?
How are you doing?
Busy day at work. I had my very first interaction with a patient who admitted to me that she had fallen victim to the castor oil in the belly button whole fad. I got really excited because I was like, oh, okay, this is very interesting. Let's pick at your brain. And yeah, it was a very entertaining day, I must say. Fortunately, she's fine. She's well. But yeah, excited to talk all things wellness today.
Well, I'm glad to hear she's doing well. Yeah, a bit of a different structure, should we say, today for our episode. We're trying to delve into a couple of wellness fads and understand, is there actually science to back these up, or what could be potentially some of the rationales for these different wellness trends. So I think we're already familiar with seeing all over our Instagram feeds for us millennials and TikTok feeds for the younger Gen Zs. Ta and I had this discussion to kind of say, is there actually any proof? Some of the stuff is starting to become like really, really wild, right? So how much proof is there actually behind some of these different topics? So on our agenda today, what does the science say? Is it just that the science is lacking because no research has been done, because, there's not the incentive necessarily to do all the scientific research into it? Or is it just that actually, this is just a potentially even dangerous sometimes TikTok fad, or just a waste of time and money? So with that, we're going to discuss today light therapy, so blue and red LED lights, my absolute favorite. Apple cider vinegar, I do personally swear by. Sunscreen, holy grail, in my opinion. Castor oil, I don't know much about this. I just know a lot of people do it. So the whole navel putting castor oil in your belly button. Let's dive into that. Mouth taping. I know we addressed it in our previous episode on sleep, but let's just quickly recap on where we're at with the whole mouth taping situation. Tongue scraping, matcha versus coffee. I'm a coffee girl, so very curious to get your thoughts on matcha. Face taping versus Botox, Guasha, and dry brushing. So quite a lot of different topics to address today.
Yes. But before we do, I just wish to state a little disclaimer that everything shared in this podcast is based on my own independent research and curiosity as a medical doctor, and not a wellness guru. I must reiterate. So all of these trends, these are not things I learned about in medical school. I had to do some deep diving into these topics, try find some scientific papers to look whether any of these claims are evidence-backed. And I'm so excited to share my findings with you all today. So yeah, just as a reminder that this podcast does not serve to offer any personal medical advice. So always seek the advice of a healthcare professional with regard to any condition or treatment you may be seeking.
Ta, let's dig right in with our first topic of light therapies. Not necessarily light therapy for seasonal depression. Let's just keep it really focused in on light therapy for your face mask, your acne, your little light ones. What are your thoughts on that? I personally swear by my current body face mask. I love it. Tell me a little bit. Does the science back it up? True or false? Is it actually worth the money and investment? And also, I appreciate that there is a difference between the actual full face masks that you keep on for 5 to 10 minutes versus the little ones that you take around your face. So tell me more about it.
Okay, great. So I'm assuming you're referring to LED light therapy, just for clarification. Okay, cool. Okay, well, firstly, what is it? It's a non-invasive treatment or mask that uses wavelengths of different lights to treat different skin conditions, ranging from acne, in which case blue light is often used, to rosacea, and even anti-aging, which is red light. So very fascinating technology that very much has scientific backing. And basically it works off the electromagnetic spectrum of light, where you've got radio waves, which are your short wavelength, high frequency waves, all the way down to the opposite end of the spectrum to X-rays and gamma rays, which are super high frequency, short wavelength. And then in the middle, you've got your visible light, which on its own has its own spectrum, the rainbow. And then you break it down even further, and you've got colors like red light and blue light that falls within the visible light spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum. So between red and blue, well, what's the difference? So the red light has a slightly longer wavelength than the blue light, which means that it has the ability to penetrate the skin on a slightly deeper level when compared to blue light. And this means that it's got very great anti-aging properties by stimulating fibroblast and subsequent collagen production. It can help improve blood circulation to the skin and has beautiful anti-aging effects. I'm assuming that that's the reason you're using it, right? For its anti-aging properties.
Well, thank you so much for calling me out on my age. really appreciate that one. Yes, I'm using it for anti-aging properties, but also because I do have rosacea and I am prone to hormonal acne. But from my understanding, actually, it's blue light that is the correct light therapy for acne, and red light is more for like inflammation, scarring, and aging. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. No, that's totally correct. And so blue light, with its slightly shorter wavelength, higher frequency, penetrates the skin on a more superficial level, but acts via a completely different mechanism, which I think is absolutely fascinating. So how it basically targets acne is that the bacteria on the skin, which is one of the hallmarks of acne, we did cover it in our episode on skincare, so please tune into that episode if you haven't already done so. But basically, bacteria are residing on the skin, and it's one of the main contributors to the development of facial acne. And what happens is these little bacteria basically release little natural light-sensitive compounds called porphyrins naturally in its natural state. And what happens is when the blue light hits the porphyrins get all excited and they release reactive oxygen species, which damages or kills the bacteria from within, basically. So it's a way of targeting the bacteria using blue light as a modality, which is so interesting, I think. But it's not the only modality. And I always would suggest one should consult a dermatologist or even just a general practitioner if one is experiencing skin issues or has concerns, because there are definitely other ways to also mitigate acne or address rosacea and other skin conditions. It's not just light therapy alone. But I do believe that light therapy makes a beautiful adjunct, and it is fairly harmless. It doesn't trigger heat and burning of the skin, which a lot of people do believe. It does not cause facial discomfort. It doesn't lead to any flaking or any inflammatory hyperpigmentation, redness, peeling. It does none of that. It's relatively benign.
So Taz, great. Very quickly, how long should you be using light therapy for then? I mean, I've heard that one of the reasons why those hand ones that you kind of move over your face, the reason why that doesn't work is that the light therapy is not on one spot for long enough. And so it doesn't actually penetrate the skin. So it's basically like a waste of money. Is there like the optimal amounts of time that you should be using the light on your face?
So there's no specific guidelines. So the answer to your question, no, I do not have a specific timeline. But one thing I do know is that the masks, as you correctly said, that cover a wide surface area of the face is more beneficial than the ones that target small surface areas. But then in terms of effectiveness, they say that it's just consistency. So daily practice, I mean, I'm going to thumb suck here and say 10 minutes, but I mean, I do not know the amount. You must always look at the specific packaging. But yeah, basically consistency, daily practice in order to see the best results.
And I think it's like I've seen personally for me, I always give everyone like a heart attack when I'm wearing my red light therapy. So it should come also with like a disclosure being like, warn everyone in the house that if they walk in on you and you have this red light, I'm convinced that God forbid if my house ever gets like burgled or something like that, I'm going to come out with just like terrify the living house by like contingency plan. I think it's better than ADT. Anyways, next topic. Apple cider vinegar. So as somebody who gets like really, really bad bloating and indigestion and everything like that, I really swear by apple cider vinegar because I do think that it really helps me, especially if I take it before eating. So you almost take like a shot before eating, which could be like an appetite suppressant. And if you take it after eating, it can help with the gas and help with the kind of like the bloating and everything like that. Is there any science to that? Is there any backing?
So it depends on the claim. Some claims hold some scientific backing, but some of the other claims absolutely do not. So I think it's important to just take a step back and be like, okay, what is apple cider vinegar? It's a type of vinegar made from fermented apple juice, and it's used as a popular natural remedy, often touted for its benefits, including weight loss, lowering blood sugar, improving digestion, and even skin health. So I just would like to maybe break it down and address each of these claims and state whether it's supported by science or not. So without further ado, blood sugar control. So actually, it's been shown to improve insulin sensitivity as well as reduce post-meal glucose spikes in type 2 diabetics. So in individuals who are prone to those spikes, there is some benefit in taking apple cider vinegar because it can lower the blood glucose level postprandial. If, however,
No, just a question. I mean, you're saying it's for people with type 2 diabetes. Yeah. Is that because the studies are conducted on people with type 2 diabetes, or is that because it's just generally that's the only population group that they found that results in?
Okay. The latter. Well, I say the latter because it might affect the general population, i.e. me, someone who doesn't have insulin resistance. It would lower my glucose too, but it's not that important at the end of the day because my spike isn't high enough to warrant a lowering, if that makes sense. So it's really only beneficial to those individuals who spike high and need to go lower to fall within normal glucose parameters. So at the end of the day, there is some support to this claim. However, I must reiterate, it's not the only way to manage diabetes at all. I mean, always consult a healthcare professional, go on your medication, be it insulin, be it orals. But as a diabetic on medication, one could also address these glucose spikes by other means, by, for example, increasing fiber intake, or even just going for a 15-minute walk postprandial. That can also have very similar lowering glucose effects. So yes, so we've addressed the blood sugar control. Weight loss, modest evidence. Some studies do show small reductions in body weight, as you correctly said, does have a mild effect on appetite suppression. But the effects may be due to a bit of nausea that one might encounter after ingesting the apple cider vinegar, as well as delayed gastric emptying. But I must state that this is not the magic bullet. If you're deciding to take apple cider vinegar purely for the reason of losing weight, there are definitely better modalities. Also, I must also just add that further studies are needed to determine the effectiveness of apple cider vinegar when it comes to weight loss alone.
And bloating?
So with bloating, there is some evidence, anecdotal evidence, to suggest that it might assist with digestion. So it might be helpful with bloating, correct, or reflux in some people, but in others, it actually might worsen reflux because of this delayed gastric emptying effect. So if you're someone known with bad acid reflux, it actually might make it worse. So definitely is not for the whole population. But then with skin health, I mean, I didn't even know that there was such a claim that using topical apple cider vinegar can actually like help acne. I mean, well, as you can imagine, that is not evidence-based at all. If anything, it can irritate the skin. So please do not do that and go listen to our episode, as I said, to find ways to mitigate your acne. Yeah.
Amazing. So moving on the topic of skin, sunscreen. There's a lot of stuff going out at the moment. I don't know. I see my Instagram feed is flooded with these influencers that are saying don't use sunscreen because it's so toxic. What is the take on sunscreen? Personally, I think that the benefits way outweigh the cons. But what are your thoughts on that?
So let's just address the elephant in the room. Sunscreen does not cause cancer, it prevents cancer. And I'm standing by that claim. It's not my claim, it's backed by science. It plays a very important role in the prevention of skin cancer, which includes basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and even melanoma, the three vicious forms of cancer, melanoma being the most vicious. And how it works, you get two different types of sunscreens, right? You get the chemicals, you get the mineral. The chemical sunscreen works by absorbing the UV light, typically UVA and B, and then basically in doing so diffuses the UV rays, like breaks it down, and then releases the heat. Whereas the mineral sunscreen acts as a barrier, a physical barrier, and actually prevents the UV rays from penetrating the skin. Okay, so the chemical ones, it's true, it does get absorbed, but in such small amounts that it's almost negligible. But if that's your main concern, just avoid that and stick with mineral.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate, it's still unclear whether chemical sunscreens cause any meaningful hormonal effects in people. So just stick to sunscreen because the benefits far outweigh the risks. And don't be scared of your sunscreen. They do not cause cancer. They prevent cancer.
So let me kind of summarize that. So with regards to sunscreen is good overall. Again, so far the science shows that the benefits do outweigh the cons. So we spoke about apple cider vinegar and bloating. I know castor oil seems to be like at the moment touted as like a holy grail of like a fix-all. It's amazing for your eyelashes. People swear for it for their skin, for their hair. There's the navel pulling, which is putting it in your belly button with a kind of patch to stop bloating. People genuinely swear by it. Is there any science to kind of back it up? I know that it is also used for like to relieve constipation as a laxative, although it's a very, very strong laxative, like I've heard. But and as you mentioned, you had a patient coming in who was taking castor oil. But what are your thoughts on castor oil?
I must be honest, I don't actually know offhand with regard to eyelashes. I didn't research that claim. But I just looked into the belly button thing. What is belly button oiling in general? Well, it's an Ayurvedic practice. So really, I do not mean to disrespect like any religious beliefs here on this platform. I'm just stating like what it is. So basically, in Ayurvedic medicine, it's applied to the navel, typically thought to promote overall health and well-being. I think the belief is that it can be absorbed through the navel and then transported to various areas in the body. But unfortunately, this is not science. This is not scientifically backed.
Again, because there's no scientific research on the topic, or because the reports like have looked into this and found absolutely no evidence to support the claims?
Yeah. Because of physiology. Like if you just know how the body's made, you know, like the structures around the navel, like basic anatomy and physiology, it's impossible. It cannot be absorbed through the belly button. There's no strong scientific evidence that applying castor oil in the belly button produces any systemic health benefits that's supposedly claimed.
Okay.
But when it comes to oral ingestion with regard to like treating constipation, there is anecdotal evidence that it works, but it is not stipulated in any guidelines. And I cannot, come forward on this platform and say that it can be used safely for the treatment of constipation. You can do so at your own risk. There are definitely better, safer alternatives.
So I know we've spoken in our previous episode about mouth taping. And you mentioned that breathing through your nose has been proven to improve sleep. I read a little bit about mouth taping, and it seems like the verdict is honestly still out, because like people are like, there's absolutely no science to back this up. This is ridiculous. This is a TikTok fad. This is people are going insane. But from our previous discussion about sleep, it seems to really work. And as someone who does tend to breathe through my mouth, like, it's definitely something I want to try, because it makes sense, right? Breathing through your nose, unless you have like a severe sleep apnea, deviated septums or something like that, or a blocked nose.
It absolutely does. Then there is a lot of science to back this claim up. So basically, mouth taping, it does help promote nasal breathing. And what this does is it encourages the breathing through the nose, which then filters and humidifies the air, which then arrives into the lungs. This can in turn help improve sleep quality, because we know that if there's better oxygen uptake, it can lead to more deeper and more restorative sleep. And then another interesting fact is that the active nasal breathing produces nitric oxide, which is actually a vasodilator, which further helps aid in the vasodilatory effects, the expanding of the vessels to promote that oxygen reuptake and better sleep. So it definitely has a lot of science backing, but not everyone can do it, especially if you have moderate to severe sleep apnea. It is not a recommendation at all. Definitely consult a physician or attend a sleep clinic, someone who can make an accurate assessment. But yeah, if you've got mild sleep apnea and none of the other contraindications mentioned, like blocked nose, sinusitis, claustrophobia, some people just don't like the thought of being taped up around their mouth, like, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, there is definitely a lot of benefit to it, and perhaps I'll try it myself.
I think I'm going to order some this evening on Amazon. Give it a try. Yeah. So next on the list, tongue scraping. So I've heard this has been used. I actually had to look this one up because I was like, I've always known tongue scraping as like what you do, like you brush your tongue because it's like you getting rid of the like bacteria in your tongue, which can make you sick. I've now been reading, okay, people do this tongue scraping, an Ayurvedic technique that is about proper oral hygiene, about bad breath, and to try and prevent that, people kind of scrape their tongues. Tell me, what are your thoughts as a doctor?
Yeah. Okay, so just a side note, when I was researching this topic, I turned to various papers because there are different claims that are made with regard to tongue scraping. Does it improve halitosis, which is the fancy term for bad breath? Does it help remove all the bad bacteria, reduce plaque buildup? I mean, there are different claims, and I was busy researching that. And I was a bit lost in the literature, so I did what every responsible medical professional would do. I turned to a dentist. Phoned up my dentist friend. I'm like, bruh, please help me here. Help me out. And she was like, wait, you don't tongue scrape? I was like, no, I'm just researching it for an episode. She was horrified. She's like, we'll do it immediately, like from today, like right now. I was like, what? This is something I absolutely should be doing. Just as prevention of all these conditions, it's super, super important. There's many different medical causes that one must exclude before you could just say, oh, you've got bad breath, tongue scrape. And it definitely is not the only treatment. It is an adjunct to various other methods. It takes the form of all good oral hygiene. So brushing diligently and flossing and non-alcoholic mouthwash. I mean, that in combination with everything. But if you just want to ensure good oral health, please tongue scrape. So I'm definitely going to take this up. But one important consideration of mine is the oral microbiome, right? So all the good bacteria that's lying on the tongue. So then I asked my dentist friend, I was like, okay, but when you're scrubbing, like if you're doing this like twice a day, she was saying that the effects of tongue brushing, provided you're not completely scraping causing abrasions, it's not going to really disrupt the oral microbiome. If anything, it's removing the bad bacteria and allowing the growth of the good bacteria. But I never found that in a study. This is like just chatting to a dentist friend. So perhaps do your own research in that regard.
Well,
but super, super interesting. And I'm going to start it tonight.
If my mom is listening to this, she'll be really happy because she's always told us since we were kids, you have to brush your tongue, you have to scrape your tongue. And there's a lot of like bad bacteria and stuff like that. It can make you sick. Whenever I had a sore throat, she's like, go gargle with like Listerine or something like that. Anyways, Matcha. So for those of you who don't know, matcha is taking over the world by storm. You know, people are calling on matcha to replace coffee and is a form of green tea. Strangely enough, like I'm not crazy about the taste of matcha. It definitely is growing on me. I have like a bit of a weird thing. Of course, I have this. If you've listened to our previous episodes, you know I probably have like every single thing under the sun. So I was wondering why like I always get tired when I drink green tea. And apparently some people are born and it's like a genetic thing that you either respond that green tea stimulates you, or you have like some genetic thing that like green tea makes you actually tired. So it like triggers something that it like has like the opposite effect. So I basically fall asleep when I drink green tea. So it's definitely like not for me.
Yeah. Well, there is a scientific explanation to that, and that is, okay, well, firstly, let's just take a step back. What is matcha? It's a finely ground powder made from processed green tea leaves. So it's a form of green tea grown in the shade for several weeks. It comes from Japan. Basically, the reason why I suspect that you might feel calm is because although it does have caffeine in it, not as much as coffee, but it does have caffeine in it, it provides a more sustained energy boost than coffee because it also contains a compound called L-theanine. And this is an amino acid that promotes calmness and reduces that jittery effect of caffeine. So it definitely evokes calmness in a lot of people. And maybe you're just more sensitive to it because of this L-theanine effect.
And should we be replacing coffee with matcha?
I mean, for me, it comes down to personal preference at the end of the day. Like, I also don't like the taste of matcha.
I do. It definitely is growing on me.
It might be worthwhile considering. I mean, there's also lots of benefits to ingesting coffee in moderation. Great source of fiber. One of the reasons. Very good for the brain. There's a lot of research going into coffee ingestion, but there's also lots of benefits to matcha. And we'll go through them, but I must just reiterate that there are no long-term studies. So it's currently being explored, but the health claims are that it's very high in antioxidants, which helps prevent the buildup of free radicals, which are basically like little dangerous compounds that basically promote inflammation in the body, even sometimes resulting in cancer. So there are some wild claims that matcha can like prevent cancer. I think that's way too bold a claim, and there are no studies yet to support this. Then there is also the claim that it enhances brain function and mood, and this is absolutely true because of the L-theanine effect that I spoke to earlier. It basically promotes calmness and a focus state without the jitters. Then there's also claims that it also aids in weight loss and boosts metabolism through its thermogenesis or fat burning effect. But those studies are really low quality studies with small participants in the groups. So at the end of the day, I would take that with a pinch of salt. Maybe just like park that in the back of your mind and like, let's see in the future if the more robust studies can illustrate this. But yeah, I think on the whole, it's definitely something to look into. There is science behind it, provided you're not going to Starbucks and getting the creamy, sugary matcha lattes, which have like, I don't know, like 6 teaspoons of sugar in it, which...
But I think there's also something about matcha. The taste of matcha is about how you prepare matcha. So if you're using water that burns the matcha, it changes the taste. And that's why it's very important to do like the kind of whisking of the matcha. And there's an entire kind of preparation and ceremony to how you actually prepare matcha. And that also changes the taste, which means that it's less bitter and hopefully you need less sugar. Next one on the list, and this is really all over my feed, is face taping. Those are people with like tape here, and people really swear by it. Some people are using it instead of Botox. Some people are using it to complement their Botox. People are taking like little strips of face tape or, I don't know, surgical tape or whatever it may be. They're taping it in certain places of their face to stop movement during the night and supposedly stop wrinkles. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think if you're wanting long-term anti-aging effects, it's not your modality of choice. Maybe in the short term, it can have some effect, but its benefits are mostly temporary and largely theoretical, with no strong clinical evidence long-term. So I think if you're wanting to go anti-aging, anti-wrinkles, perhaps turn to other aesthetics measures. You could look into other modalities too. Botox or neurotoxin is definitely a beneficial way. It's just one way. There is other biomodulators, but I think face taping is far too like superficial and is not going to offer any long-term effects if that's what you're going for.
I guess for those who don't have the means or don't want to turn to these other kind of solutions.
Fair enough, but I would still say there's no long-term wrinkle prevention proven, so you may not see good results. Okay. It can also irritate and damage the skin.
Okay, so next is Guasha. And for those who don't know it, that is taking a kind of gemstone, or often it is a rose quartz. It could be a metal, it could be in different things. And it's a small device that you use manually to kind of push up your face, and it helps with lymphatic drainage in your face. Again, also touted for anti-aging reasons, sculpting of the face, lifting of the face. People swear by it. What are your thoughts?
So I would agree. It has been shown to improve lymphatic drainage, so reduce that puffiness effect. It also helps enhance microcirculation in the skin, which can create that like brighter lifted look. And it can also release facial tension in the jaw and brow area. There is some to support to demonstrate that it does improve the circulation and lymph flow, but I must reiterate here that it is not a wrinkle eraser. So while it can improve tone and glow, it's not going to offer any anti-aging benefits in the forms of wrinkle reduction. So I think it serves a valid purpose. It has a time and a place. So maybe if I wanted to like increase that lymphatic flow, it might be worth an attempt.
Lastly, dry brushing. So a lot of people use this, and dry brushing, for those that don't know, it's, as the name suggests, you're taking a brush on dry skin, no cream, not in the shower, and you're doing kind of a lymphatic massage with the brush, doing circular motions starting from your feet, I believe, going up your body, and you kind of do circular motions to try and stimulate blood flow through your body. People swear by it for circulation. As someone with Raynaud's, maybe it's definitely something I should be incorporating as part of my daily routine for circulation. Others say, for just lymphatic drainage, everything works wonders. What are your thoughts on it? I've heard also some studies that say there's absolutely no science to back this up.
So what I found is that, there's limited scientific research validating many of its purported claims. So I would say do it if it makes you feel good, but I don't think it's going to change your life. Also, over-exfoliating can be a problem. So it can cause like microabrasions on the skin, and this can be a source of like infection because bacteria can then penetrate the skin if you're overdoing it. It can also damage the skin microbiome, because we spoke to the oral microbiome earlier, but there's also very beneficial bacteria that reside on the face, not just like the bad ones causing acne, but also good ones that kind of like restore balance of the microbiome on the face. I mean, you can dry brush anywhere on the body. Oh yeah. 100%.
I've never known people to brush on their face. I've only known dry brushing up until like the neck area.
No. They do it all over the body, including the face.
Okay.
For the same benefits. But yes, so it can cause damage to the facial microbiome. It can also trigger melanocytes, which are basically your pigment producing cells, to overreact in response to like this trauma. So, and this is particularly noted in darker skinned people that already have that baseline hyperpigmentation. There could be areas that like become even more hyperpigmented in response to the brushing. And then there's some claims that it can wake up the mast cells, which is an immune modulator, and cause subsequent histamine release. This is, of course, if you're overdoing it. So at the end of the day, I think if you're wanting to boost your circulation, you don't have to do it this way because of all these potential side effects that you might encounter. I mean, rather just go exercise. That's great at restoring lymphatic flow and blood circulation. So I think exercise would be the better modality. It's got way more peer-reviewed literature on the subject than dry brushing. But hey, if it works for you, it works for you.
Thanks so much, Ta. We've spoken about a lot of different topics. So for our 10th episode, we have covered 10 different wellness topics. So just to summarize, light therapy gets a yes from Dr. Kowalski. Apple cider vinegar for blood sugar, potentially for diabetes. Blood sugar in general, limited science to kind of back up the rest of the claims, although I still definitely use it for my digestion as I don't have acid reflux.
Right.
Sunscreen, 100%. Keep using your sunscreen. Skin cancer is real. 50 on your face every day if you can. Sunscreen is the holy grail. Castor oil, limited research, unfortunately. Use with care, especially if you are using it for laxative reasons. Just consult a healthcare professional on that one. Mouth taping, yes, if you are a mouth breather and you're having issues with sleep, but if you have any kind of severe respiratory issues, apnea, blocked nose, etc., don't try mouth taping, but definitely going to go order some strips and try that out. Tongue scraping, absolutely. I'm going to go off and do that this evening.
Me too.
Matcha definitely has health benefits, not necessarily to replace your coffee, because coffee also has health benefits, but matcha is definitely something to look to incorporate in your day, as long as it's not one of those highly processed, high sugar matcha drinks. Face taping, very limited data and kind of not the best. In Guasha, yes, is very good for stimulating lymphatic drainage within the face, puffiness, tension, all of that good stuff. Dry brushing, unfortunately, if it works for you, but could also actually cause more issues and more harm than good.
Maybe save your money on that one.
So thank you so much. I think we really got down. I think there's still a whole list of other kind of various different wellness trends for us to kind of tackle. But I think that took us through quite a lot for today. So thank you so much for listening in to the Ovarian Club. Please do follow us on Instagram at the Ovarian Club. And please also don't forget to subscribe. This also helps us to keep going with these different episodes. And if you are interested in any topics, please reach out to us. And thank you so much for listening in.
The Ovarian Club, powering life, nurturing health, shaping sustainable wellness. See you soon, follicle friends.